guys, I'm here today to do my TBR for the N.E.W.T.s readathon, which is during the month of August. So I'm going to link up the video from the creators channel Book Roast up here, so you can go and find out way more than I'm going to tell you now, because there's loads of extra things you can do to participate in this readathon, but I'm doing like the basic stuff. So if you haven't heard, the basic stuff is that this readathon started last year. And it started with the Owls readathon, so the ordinary wizarding levels. I think there's 12 owls you could study for at Hogwarts, and for each owl there was one bookish prompt. And in the month of April I studied for 9 of my owls, and I got 9 of them. And then how it works in August is that you can only study the N.E.W.T.s, which is, I think, nastily exhausting wizarding tests. So you can only study those in subjects you already had owls in. So to be honest, J.K. Rowling pretty much based this off GCSEs and A-levels in the UK. That's how it works. You pretty much have to have a GCSE in a subject in order to do an A-level in it, if there was a GCSE in that subject. Does that make sense? Anyway, off topic. So I now need to choose out of the 9 owls I studied which ones I'd like to take forward to my N.E.W.T.s. So for each N.E.W.T. there is a grade. You could get acceptable, exceeds expectations, or outstanding, and each of those grades becomes a bookish prompt. Now this year it's even more amazing. The host created a wizarding career guide which tells you what subjects you need to study in order to follow a certain career path. So I've decided that I want to be a Hogwarts professor. In all honesty, I wanted to be a magizoologist because in my Muggle life I studied wildlife conservation at university, and it's the closest career equivalent, but I stupidly didn't study potions for my owls, and turns out so many of the careers in this guidebook need potions. So yeah, I narrowed my options. However, I am more than happy to be a Hogwarts professor. I like the idea of teaching anyway. I definitely like the idea of living at Hogwarts with all the amazing food, atmos, and also really cosy tower libraries, which is what I'm hoping they'll give me for my living quarters. So how it works, if you want to be a Hogwarts professor, you have to have 7 OWLs. As I said, I have 9, so that's good. You have to have 1 of them in Defence Against the Dark Arts, which I do, and you have to have another of them in the subject that you wish to teach, which I do, because I would like to teach care of magical creatures, of course. So the first N.E.W.T. that I need to study is the subject I wish to teach, and I need to get outstanding in that subject. So that means I need to read 3 books to pass my care of magical creatures N.E.W.T. So how it works is you have to read the books in the order they're listed. So you can't read the book that fulfills outstanding before you've read the books that fulfill acceptable and exceeds expectations. I hope that makes sense. So in order, the 3 books I will be reading are, firstly, for acceptable, it's Follow the Spiders, Why Couldn't It Be Follow the Butterflies. Book title starts with the letter A for Aragog. So that book is All Was You, Edina by V.G. Lee. I bought this a few months ago in Gaze the Word, which is a bookshop in London that I love and adore, and it focuses on LGBTQIA+ fiction and non-fiction. And this sounds amazing. It's set in 1960s Birmingham, and it focuses on a working class family, and this is a young girl's coming of age story. And it says, Bonnie observes the close relationship between Ed and Ken, I believe her aunt Ed and her father Ken, without comprehending the tragic repercussions it will have on both families. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I quite like this quite sort of retro cover, and I'm hoping just to feel loads of warmth when I read this book. So there is that one. In order to get exceeds expectations, you have to read a book under 300 pages. So I just chose a book that I definitely wanted to read in August that happened to also be under 300 pages, and that is Orange Wild and Other Stories by Karen Russell. I'm really trying to get back into reading short stories. I used to read so many a couple of years ago. I loved talking about them on this channel, and I just loved reading them. And then, I don't know, just fell off the wagon. So I'm trying to make sure I try and read a couple every month, and this only just came out. I'm very excited. I've been anticipating it for a couple of years. I really love Karen Russell's books. I don't really know well, I say I don't know what this is about. Karen Russell has a very specific type of writing, so this will have that, and I love it. So there we go. And then the next one is grab onto Fork's Tale, read a book with a bird on the cover. So this has a very big bird on the cover. This is Wakenhyrst by Paver, and this is a gothic sort of horror historical novel set in Suffolk, which is where I'm from. And this is also following, this is in Edwardian Suffolk. It says a manor house stands alone in a lost corner of the fens, a glinting wilderness of water whose whispering reeds guard ancient secrets. So I love this, it sounds great. And this follows a young girl as well, and it has hints of witchcraft. So yeah, this sounds like it could be like a completely amazing book for me. So there is that one. So the next thing is I have to get an Exceeds Expectations in Defence Against the Dark Arts. So the first one for acceptable is a book that is black underneath the dust jacket. Oddly, you'd think I'd have loads of these, but actually I read mainly paperbacks, and when I was scanning my shelves I was like, yeah, I have loads of paperbacks, not that many hardbacks. What I'm actually annoyed with myself for still talking about and not having read yet is British on Race, Identity and Belonging by Afua Hirsch. So I've tried to read this twice. I read the prologue once, loved it, put it down, and then I read the first chapter a couple of months ago, loved it, put it down. The reason I keep putting it down is because the chapters are really long. I struggle to read non-fiction in general, I've discussed this loads, because I'm always trying to find the right time to read it, and I find that even harder when there's long chapters. So when I'm faced with a 50 or 60 page chapter, I think to myself, oh, you know, is it right to read it right now, like just before bed, or is it right to read it on a Sunday afternoon? I don't know why I create this barrier in my mind that doesn't need to be there. And whenever I have read this book, I found it really easy and readable and really enjoyed it. So I'm going to finally finish this one and hopefully just love it. So to get an Exceeds Expectations in Defence Against the Dark Arts, it says, Gilderoy's Memory Charm, first book that you remembered just now from your TBR. So this isn't just now. When I watched the original prompt video, this is the first book that came to my mind, and because of that, whenever I read this prompt, it still remains the first book that comes to my mind. And that is The Tricking of Freya by Christina, Sunley, and I've had this for a couple of years. And again, it's one of those books that I have every month since I bought it for, I need to read that one, I need to read that one, I need to read that one, until it almost becomes this book that I always know I need to read, but yet never will. So I really want to get around to it this month, or August I should say. This book is another family drama, which I love, and I also love the fact that this one is set across a few locations. So we follow Freya, who lives in the American suburbs, and she goes to travel to a small village in Canada, I was going to say Iceland, a small village in Canada where her family live, and a lot of her family were Icelandic immigrants. So she goes to visit them in this village, and then they start to tell her lots of sort of family history and secrets, which leads to her travelling to Iceland to try and like research into all this family history, and she uncovers loads of dramas. So hoping to really enjoy this one, and just to love the fact that two of my favourite like bookish type locations are mentioned, those being Canada and Iceland. So there is that. And then you have to read, you have to get acceptable in two other subjects that you're interested in teaching. Now I struggled a bit with this because there's actually three other subjects that I'd be really interested in teaching, those being herbology, history of magic and muggle studies. So I'm going to focus on herbology and history of magic, and if I have time I will also try and fulfill the muggle studies prompt for acceptable. So to get an acceptable in herbology, it says, Mandrake, quick, put your headphones on, listen to an audio book, can't even talk. So I'm not really sure 100% what this will be. However, I would take a guess at it being another Juliet Marillier book. I'm currently like literally just started listening to like 15 minutes of the fourth book in the Sevenwaters series, and I think I'll have that finished by the end of the month, although they are quite long audiobooks. But if I like get on a roll with that one, then I expect I'll then want to continue with the fifth one, which I think is called Seer to Sevenwaters. Not entirely sure, but I think that's what it's called. But if not, I'm sure it'll be some other fantasy book, because I have loads of fantasy books on Scribd saved on my lists, but on a hunch I'd say it will be that one. So for history of magic, it is to get an acceptable to read a fantasy, which is good for me because that's quite an open prompt, which actually a lot of these are, which I think makes it really great for all different types of readers. So the one I'm going to be reading is Deerskin by McKinley. I'm doing this as a buddy read with Chris from the channel Chris Bookish Cauldron. I love Chris's channel. It's absolutely amazing. We have really similar reading tastes, so if you enjoy hearing about the sort of books I talk about, you'll definitely enjoy Chris's channel. But he has way more fantasy reading recommendations than I do because he's read so many more, so I always go to him to like hear if a book is worth picking up or to hear about books I've not even heard of. So we both wanted to try and read some Robin McKinley because neither of us have, and our understanding is that she might be a little bit like Juliet Marillier. So this plotline sounds pretty vague. It is about a really beautiful princess who has to run away from her father, and as she runs away she finds this like loads of magic and she goes on a big epic adventure, and her dog goes with her. So, you know, that's always nice to have a little animal companion. So that's all we really know, but I'm hoping to really enjoy this and to be able to pick up more of her books and enjoy those as well. So those are, I think, 7 books that I will be trying to read. Now, I'm not someone who's like super strict about these sorts of TBRs, so if I get to one of these books and don't feel like reading it and I have another book that fulfills that prompt, I will sub it in, but I'm feeling pretty confident with this list, so we shall see. And also, as I said, I may try and, if I get on a reading roll, which might happen, you never know, I might try and get more than just the 7 books. I might try and like get higher grades in herbology, or I might try and also read remarkable studies. I don't know, because, you know, if I do that, then it opens my career possibilities, and if I decide that I really don't like teaching at Hogwarts with all the students are little shits, then I still have options, which is always good. So yeah, those are my plans. Let me know if you're taking part in the N.E.W.T.s, and if so, what career path you're going for. I think it's really amazing that there's all these career path options, and it just adds another layer of excitement and nerdiness, which is always good. And also let me know if you've read any of these books and what you have thought of them, and in particular if you've read any Robin McKinley, I would be interested to know. Thanks for watching. Bye.